We're thrilled to have welcomed our first grandbaby recently. But growing this precious human hasn't been easy on our daughter. The unrelenting pregnancy fatigue really took it out of her.
One thing that helped was keeping her fluids up, and she loved Rehydrate. Rehydrate is an essential electrolyte drink made by some great guys right here in Brizzy. It's safe during pregnancy and breastfeeding and is like a magical little energy and hydration boost for mum and bub.
If you're growing a little human or are just feeling a little run down, grab some at Coles today.
It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Even children who are struggling, families that are struggling and don't have the resources, the way that schools cater for children's needs and strengths and development and gifts and talents, they can do so many things.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the author of 6 books about raising happy families, and I'm here with my wife and co-host and the mum to our 6 daughters, Kylie, Mrs. Happy Families. Kylie, we've had, we're getting more and more emails to the podcast, podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au.
We actually have Maria on the phone with us right now, and she has a question.
Shopping on the Gold Coast. Maria, what's troubling you? Why did you email us?
Hi, guys. Yep. I emailed because I had questions about after school and extracurricular activities and just how to juggle them. I've got 3 kids. They all want to go in different directions. They all want to do music and sport and all kinds of things, even in the afternoons. And I just so much time and so much funds available for all 3 of them.
I was going to say, that's actually the big thing, isn't it? If only they all had licenses and could get themselves where they wanted to go, then you'd only have to worry about the money. But the extracurricular stuff costs a fortune.
That's right. And there's only one of me to take them everywhere.
I used to think that if I just limited it to 2 extracurricular activities per children, that I could manage it all. And then
we had 6 kids.
In 6 of them. And it's such a juggle, isn't
and
it?
That's 12.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
12.
So then I started dictating, okay, we're all doing swimming.
So Maria, do your kids all want to do the same activities, or do they literally all want to do different things?
No, they all want to do different things. And I think they've all got their little lone personalities, and so I want them to explore what they like. But, it's just challenging getting them to everything.
And so one last question for you before we try to find some answers to help. How many activities do you currently have those 3 children doing?
Well, there's basketball, there's gymnastics, there's music lessons.
Are they all doing the same music lessons?
One of them has culture group. No, they all have 3 different instruments.
They have 3 different instruments each?
Yeah. Oh, no, 3 of them have an instrument each, and they're all at different times. Different times.
And then you top school on top of that with their activities for school and other commitments. And I'm sure that
that's right.
It's
and
tiring.
Friends and family time and friends time and
It's just so exhausting. This conversation exhausts me.
But the other thing, just before we even talk about trying to work out the strategy here, the best way forward, I talk to so many parents who feel like they're not being good enough parents if they don't have their children involved in all of these extracurricular activities. Like, we feel like our children are going to be missing out, like we're doing them a disservice if they don't get to do swimming or don't learn that musical instrument or don't do all of these things. And I just want to, at the very outset, say I don't necessarily think that that's being fair to you to say that.
I think about this whole thing, and the reality is that our children live in the most privileged society that
probably in the history of humanity. Like, what even children who are struggling, families that are struggling and don't have the resources, the way that schools cater for children's needs and strengths and development and gifts and talents, they can do so many things.
And programs that are available at our schools for free that allow our children to, try new things and learn new skills that they can, add to as they grow is phenomenal.
There's community groups and if you can't afford, let's say, a musical instrument for your child, there's that thing called Facebook Marketplace where you, you can get stuff so cheap. People are constantly selling stuff, and you can pick it up for next to nothing, stick them in front of YouTube, and they'll learn how to play the guitar. They'll learn how to play the piano. Like it's incredible just how extraordinary the opportunities are for our children today if we can be a little bit creative, even if our resources are limited. So I just want to put that out there. As a parent, you're not obligated. You don't have to. It's not essential. And your children can still live really delightful lives and make a contribution and learn and develop. I think that it's really important that we take the pressure off ourselves.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that is really important, just like I had to put my decision with whether or not I go to TAFE through my own values filter, I think that this whole scenario around how many extracurricular activities we allow our children to do, what we allow them to be involved in, and how much time it takes us away from other things that we value, it needs to be able to go through that filter.
So one decision we've made is, children, you all swim for a couple of reasons. Number one, we don't have time to take you to 4 or 5 or 6 different sports because we've got that many children, and they could all choose their own sport, but we just don't have the capacity to take them all to different sports. So swimming is compulsory, and we live near the beach and we've got a swimming pool. So you're going to learn to swim, and we value fitness, and we run it through that filter of time together, capacity and logistics, and safety and fitness, and they're things that we care about. And so they're all swimming. Job done. What's the other activity you're going to do? And then, if the children want to do other sports, they can do it through school. They can do it in other ways that aren't going to have an impact on our family in those significant ways. Now, that's not always the case. If we've got a child who has a specific talent or capacity that they've developed through school or through trying a sport with somebody else, then we will look for ways that they can leverage that and take advantage of that. But it's not something that we are pushing really hard because there's just only so much that we can do.
Yeah, and we watched this with our kids when they attended a school where there was a lot of extra activities available to them. And we jumped on the bandwagon because we wanted them to be able to experience these things. And what we actually saw was that our kids burnt out.
And nearly killed us as well.
Yeah.
Not to mention the cost. So let's talk some more about how we can get this balance right after the break.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
For a happier family, try a Happy Families membership, because a happy family doesn't just happen. Details at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And today we were talking with Maria about how to juggle the choice and the time restraints around extracurricular with our children.
Yeah, so Maria's on the Goldie. The kids are wanting to spend time at the beach. They've got nippers. They've got their different sports interests. They've got their cultural activities. They've got musical interests. And Maria's kind of saying, I can't do it all. So there's two I guess, filters that I usually consider when it comes to this. Filter number one is, how much time have I got? Like, you've just got to have the capacity to run the kids from place to place to place. I remember years and years and years ago, I was doing this PR campaign for a major organization. I was on the TV doing interviews, and they had another person who was also involved. And the other person was just a kid. He was about 10 years old, and his mum had him involved in, I think she told me it was 8 different extracurricular activities per week. 8. I don't know how they afforded it, but more than that, I don't know how the time, like, how do you stretch yourself that thin and make everything happen? And the second filter I've got, other than just making sure that timing works and that you're not spreading yourself thinner than you possibly can manage, is dollars. Like, you've actually got to have the resources. You need to be able to pay for the cost of registration for the sport, or the cost of the music practice and lessons, or the cost of the instruments, or whatever it might be. No matter what extracurricular activity you do, there's going to be dollars involved, and you want to make sure that you can actually, not give yourself a heart attack every term when another bill arrives.
So I reckon there's a lot of research around this, because this is a dilemma that parents have had for a long time. Can you talk us through some of that? Like, what does the research actually tell us? On
average, children who are involved in sports or music do seem to do better socially and academically.
Well, they're learning a skill that kind of sets them apart a little bit, aren't they? They gain confidence in ball skills and, handling themselves and eye-hand coordination and all of those things, which means that they feel competent.
Yeah, that's right. And so self-esteem usually goes up a little bit. They tend to just, on average, do a bit better. But they're also, let's take music, for example, or chess. You're developing your brain. You're learning how to think differently. You're learning new patterns, new ways of doing things. And so academically, you're using your memory more. And so academically, you do tend to do a little bit better as well. And I think there's also a time management issue. If I've got to get my schoolwork done and I've got to get all of these tasks done, I'm probably going to do better. But perhaps one of the main reasons that children tend to do better is because they've got parents who are, I guess, pushing them or getting them to do extra stuff. And if you're going to push your children, you're going to invest that way, especially often with families, a great sacrifice. You're probably going to also expect some return on your investment from an academic point of view, whether they're in a state school or a private school or whatever it might be. The children do tend to do better. There's one more thing, though, that I think we need to talk about, and it's probably the most important filter or consideration of all. And that is that so often I bump into parents who are telling me that their children are not motivated to participate in the extracurricular activities that they're investing in. You know, I'm sacrificing, I'm driving them here, I'm spending all that money. I bought the harp, or I bought the piano, or I've got them in the cricket team or the netball team or whatever it is, and they just won't do it. They want to quit. They've got no levels of motivation. And it's so important that your children actually have some say in what they're doing. You know, they're not just doing it because that's what you did as a kid and you were excellent at it, so therefore they have to be excellent at it, or you didn't quite make the national team, but by golly, your kids are going to get there. I know it sounds so obvious when I say that, but it's not fair to heap expectations on our children and their extracurricular performance if they don't want to do it, if they don't have the passion, the drive, the desire. The word passion means to suffer. And if a child is truly passionate about a particular extracurricular activity, they'll be willing to suffer. If they're not willing to suffer for it, then they don't really want to do it that much. So don't force them to do it. So
we have one of our children who plays the piano, and I don't think we've actually ever had to ask her to practice because she is so passionate about it. She will literally sit down at that piano for half an hour at a time.
Oh, for 3 hours at a time.
And
she's so conscientious.
Play.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as you were talking and I was listening and just thinking about, again, another filter that we can run this through, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
You know, if we ask ourselves, why are we going through this? We're putting all of this extra stress, strain, financial obligation on our shoulders. Why? Is it because our child really, really wants to do it, or is it because we think it's really important for them?
Yeah, and you know what? Both of those are right. I mean, it is important for them, and we do want to give them opportunities, and we do want to see them exceed and excel and fulfill their potential and all those, you know, things that parents say. And I think that that's fair enough. But they've got to be tapping into their strengths, their interests. Just because I love cycling, I mean, we've tried this. I love cycling. My kids, they have not fallen in love with cycling like I have.
I think it's the Lycra.
You don't think they like looking at my silky smooth legs? That's not working for them?
No, I don't think they like wearing Lycra.
Oh, I thought you meant riding with Dad in his Lycra.
That's pretty bad too.
I've just overshared, haven't I? I've gone too far. Now, there's one other thing that I want to highlight very quickly as well, and that is that it's not great to get your kids involved in this stuff too early. You know, I wouldn't be encouraging parents to have their children involved in any organised sport or any organised, musical lessons before, on average, somewhere around 7 or 8, maybe even 9 or 10. They can have fun, they can do play dates, but you want to really minimise the pressure. Don't get them involved in competition. The competitive stuff, it's not good for them while they're young. And it's going to be so much better for them if they can naturally develop competencies and relationships without the pressure of competition and without the pressure of having to look good and be amazing and start young. You know what? There's plenty of people who have won Olympic gold that didn't even pick up their sports until they were in their late teens or even their early 20s. They'll be okay. They don't have to specialise from a young age. Starting later is just fine.
Well, hopefully these tips have been helpful as you try to navigate the world of extracurricular. with your family.
Maria, thanks so much for sending through your email. podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au is how you can get in touch and let us know what your questions are. We'll do our best to help your family be happier. If you find the podcast helpful, we would be so grateful if you take a minute or so and go to Apple Podcasts, leave a rating and review. When you do that, people find out about the show and they get to make their families happier as well, which is why we're here. That's what we love. So please, if you're enjoying it, feel free to dive in and do that. We're really grateful, by the way, to Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. He's our producer. He makes us sound great. And Craig Bruce is our executive producer. He asks us all the hard questions. If you'd like more information on how we can help your family to flourish, particularly if you'd like to have monthly ongoing support via our Happy Families memberships, you can get all the details at happyfamilies.com.au.